New concerns about hoarding household items as COVID cases surge again across the country.
On the global food supply chain so far, international organizations are warning about food security problems in the future.
The COVID-19 pandemic is testing the limits of food pantries and soup kitchens across the Big Apple. Fears of contracting COVID-19 has already led to the closure of 37% of the city's food banks.
COVID-19 is a respiratory illness caused by a coronavirus that can spread from person to person through touch, surfaces, and respiratory droplets. When the illness struck, many individuals' first instinct was to go to the grocery store and stock up not only on toilet paper and hygiene essentials, but also food essentials such as fruits, vegetables, and starches. So what might the effects of food availability during the COVID-19 pandemic cause? When the news of food insecurity came out, panic buying around the world increased, which resulted in mass hysteria, anxiety, and food insecurity. On top of these issues came another problem, which was the rise of mental health issues due to the pandemic's stay-at-home orders. Staying at home meant feeling isolated, lonely, and having an increase in free time. A mixture of isolating quarantine, alone time, and food insecurity can oftentimes cause an increased risk of disordered eating. An example of this happening in real life is with marketing professional Megan T. Bokhorst, who currently struggles with binge eating disorder. Although the government told reassuring messages about food security, Megan still felt helpless at the thought that certain food items may not be available at the grocery store, and this became a trigger for her. Megan also faced issues with seeing her dietitian at the time due to the stay-at-home orders. All of these unprecedented problems became overwhelming for her. To quote Megan, "It creates the same anxiety effect where I want to binge. Whenever we're talking about the lack of access to food, I get scared and it brings out that strange, almost uncontrollable feeling in me where I just want to eat everything in sight, even if there's no food in sight." Megan is not the only individual with a binge eating disorder who was affected by COVID-19's food availability scarage, and in fact, many other individuals suffering from other eating disorders were affected immensely. People suffering with orthorexia nervosa, anorexia nervosa, and bulimia nervosa were all affected as well. Orthorexia is an eating disorder that involves an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating. Orthorexics had the potential to feel triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic's effect on food insecurity because of the shortage of raw fruits and vegetables that the grocery stores were facing at the time. When foods such as vegetables and fruits are hard to find or are not at your disposal immediately, this can be quite triggering for both those in recovery who could potentially relapse and those who are not in recovery but are trying to get better and seeing a dietitian. Overall, all individuals suffering from eating disorders can be affected because of two aspects. One being that there is no physical way for them to achieve the help they need through dietitians, therapists, etc. And the second one being the increase in mental health issues due to staying at home for a prolonged period of time. For my video project, I wanted to get the perspective of registered dietitians on the matter of food availability during the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects. So I asked Emily Tim, who's currently working her own business as a virtual dietitian, and Jenna Corsi, who also works in her own private practice as a virtual dietitian due to COVID. This is what they had to say.
So I think over the past, 8 or 9 months that we've been kind of dealing with quarantine and COVID, at first what I saw was extremely high engagement on social media, and a lot of the insurance companies weren't covering for virtual visits. So a lot of people were going to social media and the internet to connect with people, individually to get help. And mentally, absolutely. I hear from a lot of people that they feel very isolated. I have seen mental challenges and isolation and all of that going on. So I do think that it's wearing on people from that perspective.
Unfortunately, I couldn't talk to Jenna over the phone, but I was able to get her answer through email. As humans, we can have very selfish tendencies, and I think the panic buying has shown that. Stocking up on all types of goods, whether that be toilet paper or canned goods. At the same time, I've known and heard of people helping each other out to meet their needs, which is a beautiful thing. The isolation that most people have experienced has definitely impacted their mental health. I know that therapists are busier than ever. Depression and anxiety has increased, and people are feeling very lonely during this time. I encourage my clients to learn to focus on the things that they can control. You can't control the shutdowns, but you can control how you respond to it and how you take care of yourself. Maybe it is a great time to focus on self-care practices more than you have in the past. Maybe it's finally time to reach out to a therapist or dietitian to help with your mental health and nutrition needs. Maybe it is a great time to try new recipes, because maybe you have more time for it. We can look at this as the worst thing to have happened, or as a great way to grow and learn through the challenges. In conclusion, the COVID-19 pandemic's food ability scarage affected us through various different ways, whether it be through mental health issues, nutritional issues, body image issues, etc. Some ways we've learned to face these obstacles are virtually meeting with dietitians and therapists, trying new hobbies that take our mind off of stress-inducing topics, and focusing on things we can control rather than what we can't control. As Jenna Corsi perfectly worded it, we can look at this as the worst thing to have happened or as a way to grow and learn through the challenges.